Alright guys, TacticalRab back again today. Hope you're all doing well and enjoying your day so far, and today I want to hone in on a pretty interesting topic which a lot of people have been discussing as of late. It's pretty well known now that the majority of players in the Pro League are based out of Texas. Seems to be the best place to be for the internet side of things, but some teams notably are not, right? And some teams, well, it's going to be to their detriment. Some teams you could argue it's going to be to their benefit. Exactly what's going on here, well, how much of a big deal is this going to have in the upcoming season? Because there's been a lot of discussion around it. Should everyone just move to Texas anyway? And well, even if you look at a team like a Chicago Huntsman last season at the World Championships, when Former was playing out of California, if he'd have been in Texas, would they have ended up winning the World Championship? Oh, well, you can't necessarily rule it out. It seems to have made a big difference in their play early on this season on OpTic Chicago now. Like if you guys enjoyed the video, subscribe if you are new as always, I'd greatly appreciate it. It really helps out the channel. Thank you very much indeed for doing that. This is an event from Slasher that comes out in October. Last time I have to play COD on a basic internet package from the West Coast. Bless up, because of course Slasher and those Los Angeles Thieves guys moving out to Texas for this season, despite LA Thieves. And well, the Los Angeles Guerrillas actually are staying in California, staying in Los Angeles. That could be a very difficult situation for them. But as we're going to look at what Octane says in a couple of minutes time here, actually from certain perspectives, it can actually be an advantage on certain pings, on certain server locations against certain teams given certain locations. It's very tough to keep an eye on. It's a frustrating topic to have to discuss and talk about, but it is an issue which is going to affect this upcoming season, at least until we are back to LAN at some point. My expectation is, of course, the league kicks off on this Thursday. All those matches are going to be done online, but the majority of teams are going to be playing from exactly the same facility on largely very similar hosting situations, because most of the teams are going to be playing both from Texas. So this is probably as close to LAN as we're going to get for maybe a couple of months time, where some of the majors, hopefully, we can start to be running in a LAN environment. The CDL maybe has teased it somewhat with her bringing Jess back to the broadcast, saying she's going to be a majors insider, which well, sounds like she might be hosting some interviews and stuff at major events if it actually is done in a LAN environment, which of course we would love to see maybe in a few months time by stage 3, stage 4, something like that. It might be plausible, but my expectation is that all the home series, which unfortunately home series you don't have a winner like you did last year, it's somewhat confusing. Effectively home series are just league matches to seed for the major, and all of those matches I imagine are going to be done online. Some of them are going to be in a pretty fair situation with a lot of the teams in a similar location, but some of them certainly will not be, and how much impact will that potentially have? Slasher said this as well, right? When he was playing out of California last year on OpTic Gaming Los Angeles, as of right now with the server locations, I have to play a Texas team on a Texas host, or I play on 100 plus ping on a server all the way across the country. Told them about this ages ago, they didn't really do anything about it, and even into this season it doesn't really seem like they've stepped up their game to a great degree. But the players have got around that by saying, okay, we're just going to all go and live in Texas, around kind of the Dallas area, and well, that's just how we're going to play it to put ourselves in the best possible situation for this upcoming season, which is at least cool to see. But also what's interesting is Florida Mutineers, for example, have a slightly different approach. Most teams are based fully out of Texas. Florida Mutineers are placed, well, pretty much all over the place. There's one guy in Indiana, there's one guy in Florida, there, I think maybe one in Georgia, something like that. They're all kind of around that ballpark, which means they have, as Brian Saint describes, a Bermuda Triangle location split. So not being in Texas actually can be an advantage if it means that pretty much every time you play any team, you're going to have a player which is effectively just sitting on the host. Because if you play a Texas team and you're Florida Mutineers with your players all spread around the place, then you're going to be playing on a server which is likely to be basically where one of those players is, which gives them a significant advantage on the map. Octane's going to talk about this in the coming minutes here. We're going to look at it as saying effectively that game against Atlanta FaZe, Florida Mutineers, he thinks FaZe might have won if it wasn't for this, well, server issue that they had in the game. And we've seen it very clearly with OpTic Chicago as of late. Former playing out of California last season, was still a solid player, but as you can see in this clip right here, coming back to Texas, right, or coming to Texas for the first time is, well, such a significant difference for Formal. He wasn't really aware how big of a difference it actually would be, but yeah, he definitely believes, though, with this ping situation as it is right now, OpTic are frying more than they would be able to in advance. And it's also got to be said that playing in the same location does have its advantages, right, in the sense that, okay, you're all alongside each other, you're all playing right next to each other. That's going to, well, make it feel more like a tournament, like a proper match environment. If your Florida Mutineers spread around the place, maybe it doesn't feel to quite the same degree. You don't quite get that grind or drive to, well, actually win at the tournament when it really does come time to the wire. We'll have to see if that makes any difference going forwards. But But if you're a team like Los Angeles Guerrillas, you are right now based out of Los Angeles, and that is a very difficult situation. Formal says new year, new journey. The move to Texas begins now. No more 90 ping, and yeah, another day playing from Texas means another good day. I think from Dashy as well, when he came down to Texas, landed in Texas, someone get me in a chal ASAP. So these were the power rankings that I did at the time, and yeah, someone put this on Reddit. I look kind of funky in this one. This is probably some strange inception with both of us being on the screen at the same time. Yeah, maybe I need to like make a video looking back on this video in a few weeks time, and then we can have 3 of me on the screen. I don't really know what's going on. But anyway, as you can see right here, these are the power rankings I did at the time. We're probably going to do an updated one tomorrow, but it's probably going to look somewhat similar to this. And you can see the best teams, with the exception of Atlanta FaZe, are, well, Empire and OpTic Chicago are based right now out of Texas. Atlanta are in Texas, and the worst teams in the league, at least on this ranking that I did at the time, are, well, not in those regions. I think a couple of the guys on Surge are in Texas, a couple of guys aren't, and Los Angeles Guerrillas, despite maybe being a good, solid, fundamental team, all of those guys are based out of Los Angeles, and most teams they play against, that's going to be a significant disadvantage. We saw it last season especially. Paris Legion had a really good run. I forget what home series it was at. Maybe it was the London home series. They came top 2 at the home series. They won every single series they played, apart from the 2 series they played against the Dallas Empire. And in both of those series against the Dallas Empire, they got absolutely bodied. And it was like, okay, Paris just so good against all the other teams, but against Dallas, they just can't even get 100 points on a hard points. Wasn't necessarily the case, because Dallas Empire were all in Texas, Paris were all in California, so when they matched up, the host was just so much more beneficial for Empire, and given the server locations that are available for the CDL, and therefore Paris just got smoked and really didn't have a chance in the finals before it even began. As you can see right here then, this is Crone says, these are the team locations at the present time. Empire in Texas, of course, they're in Dallas anyway. OpTic now in Texas as well. Los Angeles Thieves have a facility there, Rokkr have a facility there, Legion finally moved to Texas this season as well. Subliners have a bit of a split, they've got a team, I believe, in Toronto, the rest of the guys in Texas. Surge have an interesting split as well, with Texas being a couple of the guys, and then I think Loony and Gunless are in Atlanta. Prestinni and Octane, I believe, are in Texas. FaZe, all those guys are in Atlanta, which isn't quite Texas, but it's not too far away. It's not the absolute most tragic situation to be in, which supposedly is California. Ultra, of course, are all in Toronto, which makes sense. It's not too far away from most locations like New York and some other places like that geographically, at the very least. Los Angeles Guerrillas are all in LA. That's a tough one. And then Ravens are all in North Carolina, so that's pretty interesting. Of course, Zero is still stuck in the UK, but now they've got Paris out on that team, and the interesting one really is the Mutineers, right? So you've got one lad in Chicago, one lad in Pennsylvania, one lad in Texas. You've also got Neptune, who's on that team now as well. At the time, it was kind of a discussion whether he's actually going to be in the starting lineup, as he clearly is now, also in Indiana, right? So they definitely have that Bermuda Triangle location split as was being described. But yeah, really the situation is, if you look at a team like LAG, they're going to have a difficult time. And Octane talked about this quite recently, saying, okay, look, in their match up against Los Angeles Guerrillas, Seattle Surge versus LAG, where LAG won in that Game 5 fashion we saw, it actually wasn't so ideal, the server locations for Loony and Gunless in Atlanta. The servers they were playing on were actually beneficial for LAG. But if all of those guys, if all the Seattle guys are in Texas, then you would get a situation like we saw that we were just discussing with Dallas versus Paris Legion last season, where you kind of get bodied if you're in California playing against a Texas team. But, well, from California to Atlanta on whatever server they were on, it wasn't exactly ideal for Seattle Surge on that time around.
But that was my prediction at the time. It was actually Florida beating FaZe. I thought that this was going to happen for no reason. Like, there was no justification in my head why it was going to happen. I was like, dude, I think Florida's going to win. You know, they pulled the server, and the server thing is very annoying this year. Obviously, it's preseason, so they're still working out the system and how to do things, but we ended up playing LAG on a Salt Lake server when I have 2 teammates in Atlanta, and they're all in California, so that wasn't very fun. Danny and Pierce are both in Atlanta, so I think they were paying like 90 to 100, so not ideal there. And then in the FaZe series, I think Florida has a very, very good online split, whereas all of FaZe is obviously in Atlanta. And Florida essentially pulled the server. They're all central to northeastern in that region, and they pulled the server up there. And yeah, that's kind of what happens when you play online Call of Duty.
So I think there's definitely a motivation, and probably for good reason, for some of these teams to try and get their guys out to Texas. OpTic have done it right now. As Kevy Skill says, Texas OpTic is different. This is when they beat, well, LA Thieves in a scrim at 250 to 38. The Los Angeles Thieves guys, of course, also in that region. But the fact that the OpTic guys, and maybe the rest of the guys on the other teams as well, it's somewhat difficult to say what the setups are looking like for some of the other teams, because we don't see as much content and streams and stuff from these other teams. But all in the same location, all sitting next to each other with the best best internet possible, that's hardly going to be bad. And if you're a team that thinks deeply and seriously about winning, right, if you're Los Angeles Guerrillas, for example, Paris Legion even, despite all their money problems and stuff, they've actually moved all their guys to Texas, fair play. Last season, I'm sure there were some complaints about the California internet situation. They've all gone down to Texas, which shows that, you know, they're somewhat serious about actually taking this thing for real. But if you're Los Angeles Guerrillas, all your guys are in LA, it's you kind of know you're going to get bodied before the season even starts, to be honest, if it does stay online. At some point, we're going to go back to LAN, that is true. But yeah, if you really want to take this league seriously, you probably have to put your players in the best possible location. OpTic have now forced that to happen. The rest of the teams are somewhat unclear exactly what should happen. Maybe, I mean, obviously Gunless and Loony, they're in their own kind of place now, or they're living in the same area. And Atlanta is certainly still a better location to be than where they were. But at the end of the day, maybe it's not the best thing for that team going forwards. We'll have to talk about what this potentially means for power rankings and some of the individual matchups as well. Speaking of online, speaking of LAN, Crimsix, average placement of 3.20 across 74 pro events. Thought this is insane. 33 LAN time event winner, 4 online event winner, of course, this last season. So 3.2 average placing at every Call of Duty event he's ever gone to. I think it's something incredible. Like, as you can see right here, 74 pro events, but he has 37 championships, which means that half of the events that Crim attends in his career, he's just won. So if you were going to an event, there's a 50-50 chance that Crim is just going to straight up win that event. Not exactly how it works, because back in the day, Complexity, Evil Geniuses were just winning everything, so kind of took some of the numbers away to some degree, but still pretty incredible. Half of all the events he's attended, he's ended up winning. 3.2 average placing, and I think it was Clayster and Crimsix who have the highest ever average placing as a duo, something like a 1.9 or 1.8 average placing. Like, on average, Clayster and Crim, if they attend an event, they pretty much just win it, and if they don't, they come second or third or something, a very high number in that ballpark. Thought this was funny as well from Octane's Burner to finish off the video. London, based on the historical legend that if 6 ravens leave the Tower of London, the entire kingdom will fall. Rokkr, inspired by Norse mythology associated with Ragnarok, and then Drazah is like just a squirrel. Why is there a squirrel in the logo? Nobody really knows. We just chuck it in there. Looks pretty cool. We just run with it. Yeah, thought this was actually pretty entertaining. And yeah, just this final thing to finish off here from Scraps G. Playing some public match search and destroy. 1 versus 6 situation effectively. No problem at all on the Paris Legion now. Going to be pretty exciting to see how these guys do this season, of course. Now based out of Texas, finally, we actually might see very much an underdog team here in the Paris Legion, which maybe a lot of people weren't expecting before the season began. Intrigued to hear your thoughts on all this stuff in the comment section. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did enjoy it, I'd greatly appreciate a like on the video. It really helps out the YouTube algorithm to know you enjoyed this content. Other people like you may enjoy this content as well, and I've grown the competitive Call of Duty community. Thank you for watching as always. Take care, and I will see you next time.
What the f, bro? Just ping wars, man.
I'm the best in the world, bro. I'm so, it's not even fair. Not even fair.